the shadows and everything can be layered into place, which is not something that you can really do on an iPhone. You're definitely going to know the difference between an iPhone photo and a professional photo because professional photos are typically layered. They have a little bit of Photoshop. Usually, like my photographer will take out outlets or can lights on the ceiling or registers, things that might get kind of visually cluttered, and it's okay to remove that for the photo. And so those things are helpful and those details make a difference in your portfolio. You're now listening to Design Curious, a place where you, creative one, are here to learn about what it really is like to be an interior designer. And I'm your host and mentor, Rebecca Ward. If you're worried about how to succeed in a creative career, if you're ready to learn your next steps to become an interior designer, and if you want the satisfaction of doing something you love every day, you are in the right place. Grab a coffee, a notebook, and let's dig into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to episode 181 of Design Curious Podcast. Today on the podcast, we're going to be talking about how you can get portfolio-worthy photos of your projects. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get them if you don't have certain processes in place. That's what we're going to go over today to make sure that you guys have photos, because it's a really important part of your business and that's what you take with you when you leave a project. It's a very important topic, so we'll get into that. And before we do, I just want to remind you, my design mentor is there for you. If you are starting out your career or your business in interior design and you need help getting off the ground, all different kinds of needs that you might have as a new designer, or if you're just thinking about becoming a designer and you want to make sure it's the right fit for you, you can join my design mentor and I can work with you in there. There's 12 learning modules to get you going. Now, let's talk about the photography for interior designers. So the first thing you want to do to make sure that you can get photos for your website of your project is to have permission from the client to photograph their project in your contract at the start of the project. One of the things I do at my initial consultations is go through my contract line by line with my client, and in there I will talk about the photography and I'll say, if I choose to photograph this project, this just confirms that you'll let me come in and do that. Of course, we won't reveal any personal information or location of the home when we use those photos. So you're getting permission from the homeowner to do that. Now, once in a while, you'll have a project that you can't photograph because they might be a high profile person and maybe you have to sign an NDA in order to work with them. But that's rarely the case for most designers. So it's great to have that permission up front. And of course, if they have any pushback, it's good to have that conversation early in the project or going into it so you know that you will be photographing it or you won't. And I don't photograph every project. Some of them aren't going to photograph well. Some are maybe not in a style that I really want represented on my website. But most of the time, I do want to photograph a great project. And so by having that permission in the contract, that will set you up for being able to capture those photos at the end. Now, the next thing you're going to do is, as that project is getting near to finish line, you've got your installation day set. Then you need to contact your photographer to set up that photography date, because oftentimes they're booked out for maybe a couple months. And so you want to make sure you get on their calendar and that the photograph day is fairly soon after the installation, because you know that everything is pristine once you put it in, but it might not stay that way depending on who's occupying the home. And so the sooner you can get photos, the more likely it will look like how you designed it and how you intended it to look fresh out of the truck. So yeah, then plan early and don't wait to photograph those photos, because then it will never happen. Once you're out of that house, the client really doesn't want to see you probably for a little while. And besides the photographs, you probably don't need to go back too much. And so you want to make sure that is secured. Now, who do you need to photograph your project? This is a really important detail on getting great photos for your website and for social media and everything. You want to be looking for an editorial photographer, not a real estate photographer. They are different approaches to how they capture a space. And you are wanting, of course, your photos to look like they could be on Architectural Digest or Elle Decor or some magazine. Those are all editorial looking. They are storytelling. They have emotion to them. They use natural light. There's an artistry to it. Whereas if you're looking at real estate photos, those are almost always wide angle. They're overlit and not very flattering of the design work. They're trying to just make the room look spacious. So you want to reach out, maybe ask a referral from other designers in your area to hire someone who regularly shoots magazines or for brands or for other designers and have them come and do your photo shoot. They are probably going to be more expensive, I'd say, than a real estate photographer, but it's worth it to get those really professional looking photos and things that you need to keep an eye on when you are looking at their portfolios and make sure that it looks like something that you would want in your own project on your website. Sometimes my track record is I use pretty much the same photographer for all of my projects, and it has a nice consistency to my website. So you might want to think about that. You're basically setting up a relationship with that photographer to do all of your projects going forward. If you like them, it's great for both of you. And if you can't find one in your area, one other way of finding one would be to open a local shelter magazine. So if you had whatever your city is, home magazine, if they put out something that really highlights design work or homes in the area, take a look at the names of those photographers and then search them up and contact them and see if they're available for doing a photo shoot. The next thing you want to think about is styling for your photo shoot. There can be quite a difference between DIY styling and professional styling. If you have access to a professional stylist in your area, it would probably be worth hiring them, especially for your first couple big projects, because you could learn how you want the styling to be done. But definitely look in magazines and see how the styling is. They usually have a lot of different ideas than you would typically style a home to live in. So it's going to be a totally different thing. It's like, how does it come across on the camera is what you're thinking about. I typically will say less is more for my photos. You don't want a cluttered countertop because that takes away from your design. You want tasteful and, something that reflects your style. Of course, there's going to be different needs for different design styles. But typically, you're going to add in books and florals, throws, trays, candles, sculptural objects, maybe artwork you might borrow for the photo shoot. You want it to look lived in, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the client's own thing. So sometimes the client might have a lot of personal photos. We'll remove those. They might have a piece of artwork they really love, but we don't really want that. We don't love that for the space. And so we might bring in a separate piece of artwork to hang in place of that. So that's what shows on the website, because not all things that our clients have found in their travels is what you want to show the world on your website, in your portfolio. So yeah, bring in accessories, artwork, rugs. If they for whatever reason, you weren't able to fully stylize and finish out their home, you just did the big pieces, then you're going to bring in quite a bit of things to make it look layered and lived in. And then it's another opportunity for you to, sell those items to the client. Sometimes when they come in at the end of the photo shoot and they see all the things that you put in place, they might want to keep it. So that's a great way to sell accessories if you aren't able to earlier on in the design process as an add-on. A lot of clients like to have that look. They want it to be like, oh, someone come in and style it, make it look like a model home or like a magazine, and then just leave it that way. So that is a nice little bonus there that you can explore. And then thinking about that editorial style, your photographer should know this, but a lot of interior photos have nowadays are all the lights are off. The lamps sometimes can be on, not always though, just depends on how it affects the space. As much natural light as possible, and the photographer will take different exposures and probably layer those photos on top of each other so it all comes in at the right look that you're wanting. So you're not really seeing the outside through the window unless it's some beautiful view. And then you can get all the detail and the shadows and everything can be layered into place, which is not something that you can really do on an iPhone. You're definitely going to know the difference between an iPhone photo and a professional photo because professional photos are typically layered. They have a little bit of Photoshop. Usually, like my photographer will take out outlets or can lights on the ceiling or registers, things that might get kind of visually cluttered, and it's okay to remove that for the photo. And so those things are helpful and those details make a difference in your portfolio. And then you want to keep in mind that you want both horizontal and vertical shots, so wide and tight shots. You want to get a few close-in detail shots, and you want to be able to tell a story, especially if you did the whole house, of walking through from one room to the other. It's kind of nice to see beyond, see what the room adjacent is, and then you have a photo of that room by itself later, but you can kind of get the story of walking through the house. It's a nice detail. And vignettes, like I said, so little close-ups, maybe overhead shots of the furniture with the rugs. And keep in mind, of course, your photographer should be able to do this, but that the lines are all straight, that there's symmetry in your styling. And if your photographer is more inexperienced, just, communicate with them about what you're hoping to use the photos for. So if you're going to do a lot of social media posts with it, or if you're trying to submit it for an award or a magazine, there might be a certain number of photos that you need for each room. So keep that in mind as well. But typically you'll get about 10 to 30 shots of a project, finished photos that you want to get of that. So don't forget that people will want variety in your shots. So some photos that I'll get from the photographer, I'm only thinking about using them on Instagram or Pinterest or something like that. But there's other photos that I know, like this is the money shot. This is the one that I want to try to get published, or I want to have on the above the fold on my website. And then also think about before and after photos. So if you look through your photos that you took of the house as before you started the project, if you can get in kind of the same position and be able to line up that before and after, that makes great selling point for your clients to show them the impact that you can make. Some photographers might include videos. A lot of them don't. So you might want a separate videographer to come along to help capture video of the space. And then you want to make sure that when you get your photos from the photographer, that you have them filed away in an organized place on your computer, easily accessed, and that you want it both in the print format and in a web format, a digital format. So you want the resolution to be so that you could print it out and have great resolution, or if you just need it in a smaller file format, just because you're posting it online somewhere, it doesn't need to be as big of a file. So you want to make sure you get both of those from your photographer. And then keep in mind, too, that your photographer still owns the rights to these photos and that you are getting a license for them most of the time. So if you do submit them to a competition or to get published, then you have to get the permission of your photographer to submit them. Just a courtesy, photographers are a really important part of how you make money. It's a part of your business model. I recently finished a project, and then right as we finished, the client had kind of a life change. Their daughter moved in and the grandkids, and things changed quickly for them, and we didn't get the photos in yet. And so I reached out and asked if we could schedule that finally. They kind of were not excited about that. I was trying to be understanding of everything, but I shared that this is an important part of my business model to capture the photos of, especially of the projects that I really love. And then, of course, because the client, they really loved what we did for them. And he's like, I don't want to be the one that stands in the way of you getting more jobs because you did such great work here. So yes, please come in and photograph. And I'm like, we won't show anything of like the kids' toy room or anything like that. We just want like the main spaces and the bathrooms, and we'll move all of your personal stuff out of the way. But because the project had gone on so long, they probably forgot all of that things that I'd gone over with them like 2.5 years prior when we went over the contract. So I had to remind them about that, and then they were totally fine with it. So once in a while, you might have to come in after the fact, and you probably want to get a cleaner for them because they've been living there for a while. Make sure everything's spotless and looking great. And then, take a few photos, not the same photo that your photographer is taking, but taking, kind of action shots while you're on the photo shoot is great too. Some behind the scenes footage of the shoot, promoting your photographer, and just getting people excited about the project photos that are to come. And so that's how you can get some great photos for your projects, for your website, if you have projects going. But I get asked a lot also, if you're a new designer, you don't have projects yet, but you still need to put something on your website. Well, the most common solution would be to use your own space and go through all the same thing. Hire a stylist if you need to, or practice your styling, but definitely get a professional photographer to come in and photograph your space. Even if it's just a vignette or corner of a house, then it doesn't have to be a full kitchen or bathroom, but just something to show your work is definitely worth having professional photos up. You don't want to just do an iPhone photo of your home. People will be able to tell. So if you're just starting out, just style a corner of the room. Like even if you have to purchase some accessories that you return later because you don't have tons of funds to redo your house, that's not a problem. So definitely worth getting professional photography. I don't think that, unless you have a photography background, it's not worth your time learning how to professionally photograph your own projects. Just hire it out, hire the expert, and they'll produce something that's wonderful for you. So as you have probably seen, that photography, it can be expensive, it can be time consuming, but it's definitely worth it. And it needs to be figured in as a part of your project expenses, as part of your overhead. And you want to make sure that you're charging enough for the project so that you can hire a professional photographer and spend the time a day styling. It's a lot of time and money can go into it, but it's worth every penny, I promise you. So if you do it right, you'll have a beautiful looking portfolio that you're very proud of. All right, that's all I have for you this week. Next week, we'll have another great episode. And until then, stay creative. Thanks for listening. If you love this episode, please leave a rating and a review. This helps me reach other curious creatives like you. If you have a topic request or would like to contact me, simply head over to my website, rwarddesign.com, or email me at podcast@rwarddesign.com.